I'm going to talk about universal healthcare, socialized medicine, and the list goes on. I have lived overseas for 10 years. I've lived in Colombia, Peru, and the Philippines, and I've visited to many countries, and I've been to hospitals, and I've sought medical care in Colombia, in Bonaire, which is Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao, and in Peru and in the Philippines. And I'm going to tell you my opinion of the healthcare system in these countries. These countries have nationalized healthcare. It's extremely cheap. And for example, in Colombia, I used to be an employer. The employer pays for the healthcare for the employees. And if you want to go see your doctor, you pay like $3. And there's all sorts of laws protecting the employee. So if somebody has a cold, they would go to the doctor, and the doctor would give them a note that says they get 3 days off. And 3 days is the maximum that they would get, and they would do it all the time, and they would use it to get time off from work. There was one woman who was getting 3 days off, the maximum every month, for every month that she worked for us. I think it was 3 days every month or something like that. So she was using it to the maximum. And I was told stories. For example, there was one guy who said he was sick, but then on his Facebook page, he was posting the next day about how he was partying that on the Saturday. Friday he took off because Saturday he took off because he was sick, but then it was Saturday at 1 p.m. and he's talking about how he's getting drunk in the park and he was partying, so he got caught. So I've been to the healthcare facilities in countries with socialized medicine. The healthcare treatment is absolute garbage. The equipment is garbage. The doctors are uneducated. Almost all of them are trained in the United States. Their educational system is horrible. Everything is dirt cheap. But I'm going to tell you what I had to go through. Number one, the equipment is usually as old as you can imagine. It will look like the 1940s. There's no new equipment whatsoever. Number two, they'll have some procedures that, might be a little scary. You tend to have to wait in line a long time. In one place, I went to the hospital at 3 a.m. and there was nobody there. I was having emergency breathing. I had some sort of an allergic reaction. No, it was because of the altitude. So I was there at 3 a.m. I couldn't breathe. They had the lights out throughout the entire hospital because they can't afford the electricity. So they just turned the lights off. So you had to walk around the halls in the dark. The other thing is, it literally looked like the place was like they never completed the construction. It wasn't something that was built properly. So some of the walls were partially built, or they wouldn't be painted, or they looked really old, or you could see over a wall into a room that you should not have been able to. And it wasn't a logical floor plan. Like, you're zigzagging through all these different hallways, and you could easily get lost. None of the hospitals were modern in any way whatsoever. You're in a colonial building that's been converted into a hospital. And because they had buildings in colonial times. These buildings were hundreds of years old. The other issue is they didn't have enough room for all the patients, so the patients were in the gurneys in the hallways. And I was walking through the hallways, and there were tons of patients that were lying down in bed sleeping in the hallway. In the Philippines, it's the same thing. The treatment was $20. It was very cheap every time I went. I don't remember how many times I went because I had to go for like blood tests and things like that. But the issue with the Philippines, I was sick when I came here. I can't remember what the illness was. Okay, I remember what it was. And I went to like 5 different doctors. And it was madness to go to all these different buildings, 5 different buildings around the city, to try and find a doctor who could see a patient, just a general practitioner, because their office hours, they might only be open from 12 till 2 or something like that. And the other issue is you can't make an appointment. You got to show up at 8 a.m. and it's first come, first serve. And I asked, how many patients is a doctor going to see? He said, well, maybe 10. And there's like 20 people there. And I said, well, what if I come and there's 10 people and I sit and wait all day? They said, well, you might not see the doctor all day. The system, there's no availability over the internet. I emailed tons of doctors. I never got responses. There was a dentist who responded to me probably a month or two after I contacted him. Another issue that happened, I went to Marlon Becerra. He's a famous dentist. He's probably considered the top dentist in Colombia. When they pulled out the drill, I walked out. That's how scary it was. The equipment it's third world, and it's not modern. There was nothing modern about this place. Another issue is that a lot of doctors, they don't have what you do is you walk in, there's one room, and if they're going to operate on you, they're going to operate on you right there. So, for example, if it's a dentist's office, he has one room, and you'll see the dentist chair, you'll see his desk. There'll be papers everywhere because even though they're computerized, they still do everything on paper. You're going to get paper, 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 paper. Everything is handwritten. Nothing comes out of a computer. The secretary's desk will be there, and she'll be sitting there, or the assistant nurse. There's no such thing as that. There's one room that's a waiting room and another room that has a dentist chair with all of his equipment and the sink and all that. Nope, it's all one room. And when you go see a general practitioner, the one that I went to had a very small office. He had books everywhere and his desk took up the majority of the office. And there were two of us, so we had trouble sitting down. And he's a general practitioner. And I can't remember what the issue was. But he saw me right there. And this is the way it's done. It's really weird, the treatment that you're going to get. And it's not to the standards that Americans want or Americans are used to. I have never seen such low standards at any medical facility in the United States ever. Americans will not tolerate this type of treatment.